I want to welcome everyone to the first 2020 meeting of the local summit. Happy New Year to everyone. Let's hope this is but certainly will be an exciting year. Let's hope it's a good year as well, and a healthy year. Before we get started with our program, I think there are a few announcements that different people want to make. And who came to me? Oh, Anne, yes, hold on.
It's almost that wonderful time of year called tax time. And I'm with the AARP Tax Aid Program, which is in its 51st year nationwide. And we do taxes for low to middle income people. And anyone can come. There's no age limit, and there's really no income limit, except if you have to pay that way up Medicare tax stuff. But we have a Mamaroneck location at the library on Fridays, and New Rochelle Tuesdays and Thursdays, and other locations around the country, the county, and it's free of charge.
Any other announcements? And I'm going to turn the program over to Jeff for our 2-minute tidbit.
Maybe 2.5. On a personal note, I'd like to thank Malcolm Froman for rearranging the food pantry so my brother could attend on a Tuesday. So I've been trying to concentrate on neighborhoods this year, although I've been interrupted twice. We had our 25 waterways of our 3 communities. And then last month, I did a history on the Board of Legislatures in the county because George, our county executive, was here. Today I'm going back to neighborhoods, and I'm going to describe this neighborhood, and then somebody's going to give me the answer of what it is. I've been talking about the dirty swamp and its elegant cousin, and this is the elegant cousin. So this is a neighborhood that is centrally located, extremely convenient, and without sounding like a broker, it's walk to station, walk to stores, convenient to schools. It is so tight and tightly knit that many people don't even know it's there. And I happen to know this because at part of my life I lived there. And I would say, people would say, "Where do you live?" And I'd say, and they say, "Where's that?" So that makes it a great community. And so it's only got 4 streets in it, 2 long parallel streets, and 2 short 1-block streets. Nobody's got it yet. It is in the unincorporated section. It is got 2 little entrances on Palmer Avenue. Howell Park, that's the answer. Okay. And unbelievably, many people don't know where Howell Park is. And the other street is Howell Avenue. And then there's Hawthorne, Carleon, which many people call Carleone, but it's really Callan, which is the legendary home of King Arthur. So Howell was really a Palmer estate. Thomas Palmer bought it in the early 1800s, and then it had an old inn on it, which was built sometime between the Revolutionary War and 1840, etc. Palmer's grandson expanded the inn, added the 3rd floor. It was then become known as the Howell Homestead. And it had 40 rooms. It was the entertainment center of the area. If space permitted around this house could be written an account of the most entrancing and picturesque history of the social life of Mamaroneck and Larchmont. For among Mr. Palmer's guests could be found Mr. John Green of Grecian Point, remember, Flagler Drive, Sherman Halstead, Robert Crawford, Dudley Field, William Reed, William Sever, Robert Rushmore, the Disbros, Claps, Parsons, Henry Brevoort of Greenhaven, Alex Taylor of Taylor's Lane, Van Emmerge of Van Emmerge Mill Pond, etc. So it was quite a thing. Where was the Howell homestead located? Does anybody know? It was located on a high point on Weaver Street, opposite, here's another name for you, Grant's Florist. For those of you who remember Grant's Florist, which is a wonderful place, and when that place was torn down in 2000, and 2 homes were built there, at the time it was the oldest oldest business in Larchmont. It started in 1887. And so on the high point of Weaver Street was where the homestead was. And if you go in on Carleon down to a cul-de-sac at the end, you'll see houses that were relatively new as opposed to the other houses. That's because that's where the homestead was there, and it was torn down in 1941. Wrap it up, she says. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. I think there's one other announcement that we need to make before we get to the program.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Kate Bialo from Furniture Share House, and I just wanted to make a quick pitch for furniture. We are low in our inventory. We've got a lot of clients coming in after the holidays. And so if you know anybody who's moving, downsizing, who has used furniture, moderately sized, good condition that they would like to donate, please go to FurnitureSharehouse.org, and we'd love to take it. Thanks.
Thank you. Now I'm turning the program over to Ann.
Good morning. Our program today focuses on planning. We've heard an awful lot about different plans, and we have 3 different municipalities in our immediate area. Some of them even overlap. And so the question is, can we really plan for the future? Communities in an era of comprehensive planning. From the regional down to the village level, our communities are engaged in comprehensive planning. What are these plans? What are their goals? What are the impacts on residents and businesses? Are they enforceable? And my favorite, are these municipalities planning together? Our speakers today, the first 3, need no introduction. I was thinking that maybe they sounded like a Boston law firm, Walsh, Murphy, and Seligson. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our municipal leaders, Mayor Lorraine Walsh, who will start with the Village of Larchmont, followed by the Honorable Thomas Murphy of the Village of Mamaroneck, and finally by the Honorable Nancy Seligson, who has jurisdiction over most of these 2 areas, the supervisor of the town of Mamaroneck. We will be joined shortly by Melissa Kaplan-Macy, who is an area resident and is from the Regional Plan Association, who at the end of this will pull together and these different concepts and aspects, and will be open, everyone will be open for questioning. The honorables? Oh, Nancy will start first. Okay. Now let me just warn the participants that after about 5 to 7 minutes, I will stand up and we will ask you to wrap up your portion. So we will have adequate time for questioning. Okay, we settled? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting us to talk today. Since I have the largest jurisdiction, I get to go first, I think. I wanted to just add to Jeff's tidbits, though, that Howell Park is also one of the most active homeowners associations in the town of Mamaroneck. So there's still a really active area, and it is a beautiful little neighborhood if anyone hasn't seen it before. We're here to talk about comprehensive plans, and in the town of Mamaroneck, about a year ago, we started talking, the town board and I started talking about updating our comprehensive plan. We last did a comprehensive plan in 1986 with the village of Larchmont, and 1986 was a long time ago, even though most of us don't think so. You know, we were thinking about the fact that the world has seriously changed, not just in the 5 years, but in those many years. And things have changed throughout the spectrum of activities and services in the community, from transportation, housing, community character, development, you name it. So much has changed. And we thought that it might be a good idea to really look at it from a comprehensive standpoint, stand back, and also, most importantly, engage with the public about it. That was the most appealing part of updating our comprehensive plan to the town board, to have a robust public engagement process. Now, from 1986 till now, there's been lots of planning that's gone on in the town of Mamaroneck and in all the communities. But it's been done either by subject, topic, area, you know, dealing with what we had to deal with at the time, at the moment. And together, all of those plans and all of those actions actually form a comprehensive plan of a community. But we decided that it would be great to try and do it from this different perspective. So we started talking to people in communities that had already done comprehensive plans very recently, trying to understand what it could afford us, what it could bring to us, what are the opportunities. And again, the greatest opportunity seemed like the public engagement part, because we really have trouble as governments really hearing from the public at large about big issues rather than, you know, I don't want people to park in front of my house. We hear that a lot. And we did have to deal with that in the town, and we did start to look at commuter parking. We spent a lot of time on that, and we've made some changes, and we've addressed some of that, but we can address it in a bigger way as well. So we started talking to different firms about how they do comprehensive plans, trying to understand what comprehensive plans can do, have done, should do, could do. And we decided in the town that what we'd like to do is come up with a plan that would create policies for us, help us create policies, not focus on specific areas, not focus on specific, very specific detailed issues, but bigger issues. And some of the issues that we decided that we would like to focus on are community character, recreation, mobility, because mobility is transportation and how you get around. It's not just driving cars, it's walking, scootering, motorbiking, bicycling, it's everything. Maybe shuttle buses, land use as it is now, but future development as well, including open space, buildings, every kind of possible land use, commercial issues. And so we thought that it would be helpful to the town if we could have really robust engagement with the public through all different kinds of mechanisms. So we said we wanted to have a website presence during a comprehensive plan. We want to have a survey. We want to have meetings. If we want to have meetings on subjects. We want to have overall meetings, town meetings. We want to have meetings in a box, which means that you could give someone who has a constituency like a homeowners association or a religious institution, you could give them the materials to conduct a kind of meeting on the subject in their community to give us the feedback, because the hardest thing is getting people to engage on these things, and the most important thing is hearing from everyone about it. Because what we want it to be is a comprehensive plan that reflects what the community's interested in, the community's vision of the community now, and what it would like to see for the future. So it's engaging everyone on all different levels. And we have struggled, I have to say. We started this conversation a year ago, and we're not there yet. We are still negotiating with consultants to figure out the best way to do this, to try and get them into the same space and place that we are in and wanting to have these public policies. The idea is that all of this information, this robust public engagement data, would help us say, you know what? Everyone thinks recreation's just fine in the community. We don't need to expand. Or everyone thinks that there's got to be way more recreation. We need more opportunities. Whatever it is, and that very broad stroke would then inform specific decisions going forward and specific site issues going forward. It's not going to solve all our problems. It's not going to answer every single issue for us. But we think it would be the best way to guide us for some of these things. So we are in the process and have been, as I said, for a year now, to really think about what we'd like to get out of the planning process and what could serve the town the best. The town has also got to look at, who we speak to, because we want to have everyone engaged, but most of the services that we provide are for the unincorporated area residents. But lots of services also apply to the villages. And one more thing, and that is that, yes, we actually plan together. We do meet together. In fact, this afternoon we have a lunch. It's called the Town Village School Meeting. We meet on a quarterly basis, the 3 chief elected officials, with the school boards and the school superintendents, and we talk about development issues, school issues, land use issues. We talk about these issues on a continual basis, and we even like one another. So that is very helpful, because when you build relationships through, at least I like them. I don't know. When you build relationships with the people that you work with, you're able to work a lot better and talk about issues a lot better. And so we do meet on a regular basis, and we do discuss these issues as well. So thank you, and I'm going to pass it on to Larry.
Let me just make a quick comment before. And that from 1966, one of our earliest comprehensive plans for the village of Larchmont, it was called the Mamaroneck Larchmont Joint Planning Committee. So,
Thank you, Anne. And thank you to the summit for planning this topic and for inviting all of us to come talk this morning to you. As Nancy said, a community's comprehensive plan isn't always really just one document, but it's a collection of all of the actions, works, studies, reports that a community has done to address the land use policies and issues that are facing each community. I'm a former teacher, so I like to bring visual aids. So on the table, I just have a collection of some of those documents from the village of Larchmont. I'm sorry. And as a whole, this is the comprehensive plan of the village of Larchmont. We have, as Anne just mentioned, the 1966 master plan of a joint operation between the town and the village, a 1986 update of that. And then in the village of Larchmont, a group of community members and village officials created the 2020 report, which was presented to the village board in 2002, which was a look back and an update of the previous. Those planning documents can be referred to today, and it's really remarkable when you read back, even to the 1966 one, how many issues addressed in those are still relevant today. However, times change quickly these days. And we can't only rely on a static document of broad policy statements in order to help guide what the decisions that we have to make within our village. We really have to be nimble. We have to be able to respond to the conditions in the community as they arise. Larchmont, as compared to the town, is a very, very small place. And the relationship between the elected officials, the government employees, residents and business owners is incredibly intimate. We work together all the time to gather input, make plans, and execute actions. I like to think that one could almost say that the village of Larchmont is a living comprehensive plan. We are constantly working on a vision for what we want and working for solutions to solve some of the problems that come up. I just want to mention briefly some of the items that I brought along and the general planning umbrellas under which they fall. Although, again, even though these may be standalone documents, they are not created nor do they exist in isolation. Nancy mentioned one of the things that they want to look at in the town comprehensive plan is
community character. We spent in 2016 to 2017 an entire year on a collaborative effort with community groups, residents, and a professional planner, doing a massive overhaul of the residential zoning code in Larchmont. And that was to address some legitimate concerns about overbuilding and single-family lots. One of the results from that was 17 changes to our zoning code. Really quite an amazing number of alterations. We also hired a professional planner to work as a consultant to the village. We hired him roughly 2 years ago, and he's been working with the planning board, and he also works with the village board to consult as needed on planning issues. And another outcome from that was the creation of the Historic Preservation Task Force, which is continuing to look into the policies of protecting community character. We're in the midst, or I shouldn't say the midst, the beginning of an historic resource survey, which is being done for us by Larson Fisher Associates. And that document, once it's completed, will help the task force and the village board consider potential historic preservation legislation. The downtown in Larchmont has been a conversation for years, if not decades. I mean, if you go all the way back to the '66 master plan, it's discussed in there as well. So we've had an ongoing conversation about that. And so the community together has been working for several years on lots of different aspects of how to revitalize the downtown, how to improve the economic long-term viability of the downtown, how to improve issues on transportation and parking. We have a parking study which has just recently been completed and discussed, which was done throughout the community with surveys, intercept surveys, meetings with the chamber, schools, post office, apartment residents, etc., to gather all of that information together to put into there. We have zoning legislation currently. Oh, I'm running out of time. So we also have, okay. So we also have, on the environment, we have Climate Action Plan from 2011. I have an LED streetlight upgrade report, which results from some of the recommendations in the Climate Action Plan. Of course, there's the LWRP, which we do in coordination with the town of Mamaroneck through the Coastal Zone Management Commission, which I used to co-chair. And we also have a sanitary sewer evaluation study, which we're also joint in, along with 2 other communities, to take care of infrastructure to help improve water quality in the Long Island Sound. Open space and recreation. We have a Parks and Trees Committee, Friends of the Larchmont Parks, Pine Brook Neighborhood Association, and Flint Park Conservancy. They've all been working together with us and with each other and with the Environment Committee to plan how our open spaces can best be used and to implement some changes. We've done some major renovations to several of our parks. We have one ongoing now. We have one at the beginning planning stages for Flint Park. And they're also looking together to work on a long-term plan to tie together environmental issues with park and open space issues, so that we can, moving forward, we have a way to sort of look at those things together and make some plans. And the final thing I just want to make sure everybody knows that in 2017, Larchmont adopted the county's model housing ordinance and created a zoning requirement for affordable housing in multi-unit dwellings. And we were very proud that we finally did that. We work closely with the town, as Nancy mentioned, on many issues. And of course, the 3 municipalities work together all the time. Thank you. What, 5 minutes goes fast. Dan, do you want to say something?
Oh, no, I can just introduction, right? The more florid, the better.
Floridly, Mayor, the Honorable Thomas Murphy of the Village of Mamaroneck.
I could have done better than that. Good morning.
Thank you for having us. The Village of Mamaroneck is in the middle of updating our comprehensive plan. We last did a comprehensive plan update in 2012, and it was recommended that we look at it again in another 5 years, which we're doing. The hardest part about doing an update or a master plan is getting a wide range of input. Because there are always the 50 or 100 people in every community who are going to be vocal, who are going to come out. But you don't want just that view to shape what your vision is for the community. And that's what a master plan is. It's a vision for the community. It is not your zoning. I think people confuse the master plan with the zoning. It is not your zoning. It should guide your zoning, but it is not like the constitution of your zoning. Your zoning code is your zoning code. And the one thing about the master plan, we in some sense we don't work together, except for things that the town overlaps on, because we all have different zoning codes, and that was probably the genesis of why we have a village of Larchmont and a village of Mamaroneck, because the town's too pushy, and we wanted to get out of the oppressive yoke of the town, and I think we've been successful. But you know what? When you're an elected official, and you have to deal with the situation that arises. When Nora Lucas and I were elected, there was a lot of consternation and real concern in our community about what was considered out of control development. And I think they were right, it was out of control development. So we did not wait for the update to the comprehensive plan to be done. What we did was we took action on what was a situation that needed to be addressed right then and there. The people who were doing our comprehensive plan, the NV5 consultants, we also used to do the changing to our zoning code. We lowered the ability and the heights and the density on multi-family developments. There have been a lot of them in the village in the past 10 years. Way more so than in the town and in the village of Larchmont. The whole, and the reason we took action is because we were afraid that the whole character of the community was going to change. And in some sense it has. But the village of Mamaroneck is a kind of different animal than these our sister communities, because we're more of a real, almost like a little city. We have a downtown. We have some of the problems that you have with urbanization. We have vast wealth on one hand, and on the other hand, we have abject poverty. And we have to deal with all of those issues. And we work hard to try and keep all that in harmony and try and have a community where we all look out for each other. And I think for the most part we're successful. But this isn't a cookie cutter. What works for Larchmont does not work for the village of Mamaroneck, does not work for the town of Mamaroneck. When we talk about cooperating together, this isn't, we're not living in Indiana where the next town is 20 miles up. We're living in Westchester County, where New Rochelle is contiguous with the town of Mamaroneck. New Rochelle is talking about adding 17,000 people within the next 10 years, and that affects us. Those people are going to come to the village of Larchmont. They're going to come to the town of Mamaroneck. They're going to come to the village of Mamaroneck, and it's going to affect how we function. We have no control over that. So the interesting thing is, we talk sometimes about, doing county-wide planning, and it sounds good until you realize then you won't be able to control what's going on in your own community. And like I said, I think that was the genesis for why we have all these little communities, because everybody wanted to control about what was going on locally. So I think Nancy and Lorraine made good points. It's very hard to do a master plan, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort, and I applaud the town and Larchmont for all the work that they've done. We're updating our LWRP at this time, and it's a lot of work. And as we say in my job, you measure twice and you cut once, and hopefully by doing that, the process takes time, but you get a better product at the end. And when folks in the community feel aggrieved by something that's going on, they want an immediate fix. And sometimes the immediate fix isn't the best fix. And that's a hard thing to say as an elected official, like, we're waiting and we're going to do this, because I elected you to fix this problem. Well, I'm trying to fix the whole problem. So it's a very nuanced reaction that you have to have. But I think that, like I said before, by taking your time and doing it right and not rushing, but also fixing what needs to be fixed, in the immediacy, it's a hard balance to have. But I think we're all working toward it, and it's good to have discussions like this, just so that we can just talk about what a master plan is, because it's a comprehensive plan, because it's a nebulous thing, and a lot of people don't understand. Listen, I wouldn't understand zoning and planning as well as I do unless somebody had immersed me in it. And I had known people like Ann and talked to them over the years. I'll finish there. Thank you.
Thank you, our most esteemed mayor of Mamaroneck. I'm making up. Just to follow up a part of what the esteemed mayor was saying, is that one of the most colossal failures in planning was the IKEA project that was was finalized in 2001, 2002, during that era, when the city of New Rochelle planned a colossal 275,000 square foot IKEA on Fifth Avenue, right on the border of the town of Mamaroneck. The town of Mamaroneck sued, failed. I think the expression used was "go fish" from the city of New Rochelle and from the courts, because the town had no legal ability to prevent that project on its border, right on Fifth Avenue, and the incredible impact that would have on the town and the two villages. It was PR and lots and lots and lots of meetings and fury that actually had a multinational corporation give up on IKEA and its parking lot of over 1,500 cars. It was colossal. And on top of that was the imbalance of the distribution of the sales tax. We would get absolutely nothing from the sales tax collected within the city of New Rochelle, and that stands to this day. So if you want to go shopping, ladies, Lord & Taylor is in the town of Eastchester, and we share in that distribution. So do your best, please. Okay, so regional is important. And now we have our final speaker, who is a resident of the town, and we're delighted to greet you. This is your first meeting of the summit. It's quite an immersion. But Melissa Kaplan-Macy, who is a professional planner and is with the vice president of the Regional Plan Association. She's a graduate of Brown and of the Wagner School of NYU in urban planning. We are delighted to have her here in order to kind of pull all this together for us. And particularly the part of interest to me, and I think of the group, is that how do we plan together? Thank you very much. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you all so much. Okay, great. Thank you for the audience. It's wonderful to be here and to be sitting at the table with all the chief elected officials for the municipalities. It's an honor, really, as a resident and a planner, to be able to be part of something like this. Thank you. So I'm just going to talk very briefly. I think the benefit probably is the questions and answers that we're going to have in a few minutes in the discussion period. But just to tie a few things together, I was asked to just speak, more generally about comprehensive planning. What is it? And I think just, coming in late, but listening to what folks said, it's this tension that everybody talked about between the immediate need to govern and address pressing issues and, questions of the day that come up in the course of business and in the, I'm not a municipal official, but all of those pressures and those things that you need to deal with. And then there's also, in sort of more the ideal world of planning, the opportunity to take a step back when you can. And you can't always do that, but when you can, to look comprehensively, and Tom said it really well, just a vision for the future, and what does that really mean? Because there are the decisions that get made every day that are immediate, that need to be addressed, and then there's also sort of this bigger picture, how does everything tie together? When we have a parking issue, we need to address the parking issue, but does that have an impact on traffic or housing or recreation and open space? These things all relate to one another, and individual decision making around those things needs to happen. But when you can take a step back, you can do some very thoughtful community engagement that isn't necessarily sort of town by town. As we were just talking about, there's those decisions that happen daily, town by town, but when you can think comprehensively and engage the community, engage groups like the folks here today and the broader community together, just to say, well, what do we want our future to be like? Things are changing. We're getting all these pressures, just talking about what's happening in New Rochelle. Communities continue, with our everyday business, but the world around us is really shifting. So I think one of the things I just want to highlight is, how do we, as a community, start to address those things in a way that's thoughtful and respectful of all the different opinions that are out there, and really have a process for doing that. And to me, that is really the biggest benefit of the comprehensive plan, is to create that safe space for those conversations where it's not about one project on one place where everybody's very riled up for very specific reasons, and very legitimate reasons in most cases, but really to say, okay, well, if we're seeing these big shifts, if we're seeing this population growth that we're seeing obviously the development pressure is coming from somewhere. If developers want to develop, it's because people want to live here, and we've seen this very big shift, and I'm sure we're all aware of it. Everybody loves to talk about the millennials, but they're just, our preference changes. People aren't so much interested in going to an office park in the middle of nowhere, driving there, working all day and coming home. People are really looking for communities like ours, which is wonderful, in a lot of ways, because these places, transit accessible, near, close enough to New York City, but still, that really nice single family home by the water. We really are in this very sweet spot, which is amazing, which is why, people come here. The folks, a lot of the folks I talk to, my kids are in elementary and middle school, have come here in the last, 5 or 10 years for mostly all the same reasons, the reason I came here, which is it's an amazing place to live, and getting priced out of the city, squeezed out space-wise out of the city, and these are trends that are happening. So being able to take a minute, or more than a minute, but a few months or a year, and have really thoughtful conversations, be able to listen to folks in the 3 municipalities. The town is leading the effort, but being able to, when we go out in a few months and we're talking to people, say at the farmers market, and asking, hey, what do you think about, recreation? What do you think about housing? Most of the time, people are going to be from different municipalities nearby and might not even know exactly which municipality they live in. I was, again, being new here, was like, oh, I live in the village because, my zip code is 10538, but no, I live in the town. So I think the important point, the really important point is that, we share these common issues. When we're thinking broadly, when it's not about that very specific decision on the ground in a certain place, when we're thinking very broadly about something, it is really across these municipalities. And then the other thing I'd really like to add before I stop going on and on, but is, it's trade-offs. I think that's the other thing that's really helpful about a planning process and a comprehensive plan, is you can talk about the trade-offs, because when you push one thing here, it pops out somewhere else. If we have a parking issue around the train station and people are parking, say, on the residential streets, and neighbors are saying, I don't want those cars parked in front of my house all day. Okay, but then, there is the demand, people need to find a parking space, so do we expand the parking deck lot near the station? Well, I don't really want to expand that lot. Well, do we need a parking deck? Well, I don't really want to see a parking deck there. So being able to have a conversation that's not about a specific development proposal on a site, for X, and being able to say, well, what are we going to do about parking near the stations? How are we going to address this globally? And that's just one issue. But just, I think, being able to talk really, honestly with ourselves about those trade-offs in a really safe and inclusive and engaging way is a huge benefit of the comprehensive plan, and one of the things I'm most excited about. So I think I'll stop there. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, all. Of course, I have a few questions, but I'd like to open the forum to, let's see. Are there any questions? Oh, come on. Yes.
My name is Amira Rotem. I'm in Larchmont 44 years. I invested with 4 grandchildren and 2 lovely families that joined Larchmont back after running around all over the world. My question is, once you make your planning, once you implement the planning, do you check how it works? Because, for instance, the lighting, it's very dark. I never had it so dark in Larchmont. You know, I don't know, you changed the lighting.
Where do you live? Or the unincorporated?
In the well, I live in the unincorporated. My son lives on Cherry Lawn in the village. My daughter lives in Cherry Ave, yeah. My daughter lives on Mary Avenue. I drive all around. I babysit. I'm at night. I'm early at 6 o'clock in the morning. It's dark.
So we, in the village, oh, there's a microphone. Thanks. Yeah, it works. So in the incorporated village of Larchmont, so Cherry Avenue, we have, and I brought it here, just received an LED streetlight update report, and so in the next couple of months, we're going to be changing out all of the streetlights, the Cobra heads and the town and country lights to LEDs, which will provide much more consistent lighting, better distribution of the light on the ground, and also consistent color of light from fixture to fixture. So one of the other things that's sort of a problem now is that some lights are white, some are blue, some are yellow, and how they light the street can change drastically, and I agree that there are some very dark places. Once that's done, there'll be another review and photometric study done by, this is the New York Power Authority who's doing this for us. They'll take a look and we'll see if there are any dark spots that need to be addressed. The town did LED lighting, so I'm going to turn this over to Nancy because they did that a couple of years ago.
We, in the town, did an energy performance contract 6 years ago, and one of the largest components of that was transferring all of the street lights to LED lights. And they were and are controlled by a computer system that allows us to actually manage the individual lights or groups of lights in terms of their strength and even some of their color. So I would appreciate it if you have specific spots in the town of Mamaroneck that you're concerned about, that you feel are too dark. If you would let me know, then we can go review those. So we have been very pleased with the changeover to LED lights and the control that we have of those lights. But we also did have a issue with programming them for the first couple of years, and it was something that had to be worked out and actually worked over. But we now have much better control of them, so we can definitely help with that. So yes, but we definitely do review those kinds of issues continually.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Steve Rolandi. This is my wife, Pilar. We are residents of Washington Square, the town of Mamaroneck, and I'm at Pace University. I'm glad to hear the cooperation between the three municipalities. I was just curious if you could talk about, and this is addressed to all of you, the level of coordination, interaction with the state of New York and Westchester County on planning issues.
We're in the county of Westchester in the state of New York. And the county of Westchester's pretty good right now. And actually most components, most agencies and departments in the county of Westchester work well with our municipalities. We are intimately involved with some of the departments in the county of Westchester. Planning department is helping run the census, 2020 census update. We're working very closely with them. Department of Environmental Facilities runs the sewer systems. We're constantly working with them. There are just many, many areas, specific areas in which we work with the county. Also, as you know, we have a new county executive in George Latimer, who is also a very big supporter and good friend to all of our municipalities and very aware of what's happening here. So there is a feeling that we can reach out to the county when we need to. there are so many layers of requirements for the county and the state that we have to deal with, and that are incredible burdens and take up lots and lots of work and energy from our communities. But we work pretty well with them, I would say. The state has laws and regulations and policies that are mind-boggling in our opinion, and really are not friendly or favorable to local governments in a lot of instances. We'd love to see those changed. We work with the Westchester Municipal Officials Association that I was president of last year to speak to the county about, the state about these issues. Sometimes they're heard, sometimes they're not, but we continually work with our state legislators. Certainly Senator Shelley Mayer and Steve Otis, Assemblyman, are very, very open to us, aware of our issues, and willing to work on our issues. So it's an interesting relationship. I would say we're all related. Oh, can I use your line?
Sure, please.
Okay.
Trademark.
This is Tom's trademark line he invented yesterday with me, and that is, we are like a family, but all the kids are different. And they have different needs and different challenges and different abilities. So we work together like that. If you have specific issues, I can certainly address, we can address those too. But
well, there's just one specific issue to go to that point that, sorry, that I have an appointment to meet with County Mike Kaplowitz, right? Yeah, to begin a discussion about consolidation of sewer systems countywide. So that would be an incredible benefit to all of the municipalities, because right now we have an incredibly large economic burden maintaining our sewer systems and the treatment plants. So that's one example.
I'm speaking as a member and volunteer for At Home on the Sound, and I just want to mention that, as we can see, we have a lot of gray hair around the table, and our population is increasing in this area. We provide help with transportation and socialization, and I don't know. I actually don't know, because I'm a volunteer, I'm not on the board, but our town and our village and the two villages should really help support us, because even though it's a membership organization and we do pay dues to be members, we have scholarships, we provide assistance to people who can't afford the membership. So I do think, and I hope, that our senior citizens have been included in all of this planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Estelle. I think one of the things we've done successfully, the town of Mamaroneck, the village of Larchmont, and the village of Mamaroneck have melded our senior citizen center together, and we provide services out of the old VFW hall, which we bought when I was on the town and under Nancy's leadership. We bought the VFW building and turned it into a senior citizen center, and kind of run everything programmatically out of there. I think that there are a lot of services that are available. I think a lot of the problem with dealing, in the whole community, a big problem is getting the word out. There are no more real media outlets in this community. We have the Journal News, but the Journal News, I pretty much tell the reporters, do I have to set myself on fire in the middle of Mamaroneck Avenue to get you to write a story about this? And they said, well, almost, but let us know if you do that. But LMC-TV is vital to that. And we need to push LMC-TV as, our community connection, which is their slogan. But also, it's the only link for us elected officials to talk to people. And it's in this day and age, everybody, something happens in the community, and people say, well, I didn't know about that. Well, we sent out email blasts. We put it on social media. We put it on LMC-TV. You can't go to everybody's door and knock. And it's very hard to reach seniors, too. And we have to get a better way of reaching seniors, because a lot of them aren't on social media, and they're not checking email as frequently as... I tell you the truth, I don't check emails frequently as I used to, because there's so many other ways that information comes in. So it's an evolving thing about how to get the information of what is available to people. But there are services available. I think that's something that we have to work on, is the communication of those services.
I just quickly want to mention, Estelle, that from the Community Services Department in the town of Mamaroneck, which services the 3 municipalities, there are transportation services, there are meal services, there are all kinds of programs every single day. So I know it doesn't satisfy everyone's needs, but it is, there are very comprehensive programs. So everyone should know that, and we'd love to get the word out more about that.
Thank you, Richard Ward. I have a question related to Larchmont Reservoir. The town and the village of Mamaroneck rely on the use of the reservoir for flood control mitigation, and the question is, the village, as I understand it, wears the risk of catastrophic failure. So in other words, if those dams were to fail and there were fatalities downstream, the village is not indemnified against that risk by the beneficiaries of the flood control. Is that an issue that will be addressed in the upcoming planning?
All right, thank you, Richard, for that question. So actually, that's an aspect of that dam and flood mitigation that I have not contemplated, that's never been brought to my attention before. I need to look into that. We had a fairly recent study, say 4 years back, an engineering study that looked at what was the area that was served by the dam in terms of flood mitigation, and what would be the downstream effects if there were catastrophic failure of those dams. The flood mitigation benefits of the reservoir dams are primarily felt by residents of the unincorporated town downstream of, and the village of Mamaroneck, who are downstream of the Sheldrake River there. But, and of course, yeah, we are responsible for the insurance that covers the reservoir and dam system. So thank you. I'm going to look into that question.
I just want to jump in there for 1 second. The town has been very good about lowering the level of the reservoir before and a heavy rain event, and I just want to point that out, that that's an area of municipal cooperation that's been working well for decades, I suppose now. I often, if I know there's going to be a big rain event, I'll call Steve, and Steve will say, yeah, I got it already. I got it already. But it's nice to know that there's a municipality and people in the other community who really care about this and who really want to do the right thing and who are on top of it too. So I just want to give them a plug.
I have to add to that then, because we have also taken the maintenance of the upper dam and the lower dam quite seriously. We've done some major renovations to the lower, and we will be embarking on a project along the upper reservoir on the part of the earthen dam section of the upper reservoir.
Hello, my name is Anna Denoy, and I'm the Director of Community Services, Senior Programs and Housing for the town of Mamaroneck. I also cover the villages of Mamaroneck and Larchmont, and I have a meeting with the manager at the village of Mamaroneck coming up this week to talk about the programs and services that we offer. We have a lot to offer. Some of it is on our website, but we really are doing a push out into the community this year to get the word out. We have a lot of services in addition to things like medical transportation, Meals on Wheels for people who have maybe had surgery and can't prepare meals for themselves. So I just wanted to respond to your concerns, and we will be reaching out everywhere in the community that we can, in person and having meetings at the senior center as well.
Maybe you could speak at one of our meetings. That would be
I would love to.
Good morning, I'm Bruce Shearer. It's a pleasure to be here. Look across this room and see so many people who've been coming for 30 years. 30 years. This is citizen involvement. The summit was created 30 years ago. And I'm standing up to remind us why we were created back then. It was because there was a sense that there was not enough attention to social issues. There was a lot of division in the community. There were a lot of high-end wealth people, low-end very poor people, as the mayor from Tom Murphy said. So my question to you is, I presume that the planning is based on values. We talk about policies, we talk about studies, et cetera, but ultimately we've got to have the values of the community we want to be. And this group of people has been a guardian of that over the years. So how will that happen? How will we take what is a more divided community in a very divisive era politically? How will you reach out and bring us together and create some bedrock values for this new planning? Thank you.
Well, I just want to thank you, Bruce. It's good seeing you. When we did our recent change to our zoning law, one of the things we made sure of was that now any new development has to have an affordable component. And we're trying to make changes that would really encourage all affordable developments, like projects that are not market-based at all, but projects that where people use tax credits and they're a completely affordable development, like the Washingtonville Housing Alliance has been doing. But your point is well taken. It is a diverse community, and I think that the leadership has to have values that are reflected in the community, right? I think that we have to recognize that diversity, and also try and make kind of like a symbiotic relationship between the wealth and to those that need help. And I think in the village of Mamaroneck, we've really done that in a lot of ways, through the CRC, through the food pantry, to put people, I just wrote a recommendation for a young lady who I hope is going to get into Harvard. And I'll tell you what, my father would be so amused that I wrote a recommendation for somebody to get into Harvard. That just went through my head. But what she did was she started this place called the Street Store. And what this young lady did is she went around and on her own idea, asked people for clothing that they needed, that didn't need any more, that was in good shape. And she set it up in Columbus Park, and it's grown and grown and grown. So now people that have a need know that twice a year there's going to be a place to get children's clothes. There's going to be a place to get clothes for young teenage girls. Because a lot of in the high school and in the schools, it's unfortunate, but how you dress reflects who you are. I think that we do that more in how we interact with each other in these communities. But I'm glad you brought that up, and I know Melissa wanted to say something.
I think this is a great question, and I think one of the reasons I'm so excited to volunteer and put my time to getting to know everyone here and kind of bridging that professional and personal interest in what happens where I live is because of this comprehensive plan, this opportunity to really do what you're talking about, is to create a conversation. One of the biggest, most important points, and I've talked, Nancy and I've talked a lot about this, is, well, you'll have a document at the end, sure, and that's really important, but the process that we're going to use to get to that document is really what this is all about. It's creating an opportunity to have the conversations about the future for everyone in the community, not just one, particular part of the community, and having many, many conversations with many, many different people and all points of view, and taking that process as an opportunity to create space for all of that goodwill. Because I think, when you talk individually to people, I love this town. I know we all love this town, but I'm pretty new, and I'm just so happy to be here. There were so many places we looked coming from Brooklyn. Where should we live in Westchester? Well, we could go, I won't name names, but we could go to a lot of different towns that offer a lot of different things. And I just feel like this town really has it all. And I think that's, the people here have a certain kindness that I've experienced that is just wonderful. And I just think we have, in all the busyness that we all have and all the decisions like we've been talking about that need to be made constantly, not often the space to have a collective conversation, about values. And when I talk about values as policy, figuring out values and then being able to talk about what public policy looks like based on those values, and then being able to make decisions going forward, on those policies and those values. So I'm super excited that we're all here, that everybody's engaged, and that we're going to be having so many conversations over the next probably 6 months, everywhere, with all the groups we can possibly think of. We started a very big spreadsheet, and I think we'll keep adding to it of, all the places we want to be talking to everyone to really unearth that. So I think this is really the start of, a lot of great collaboration that already exists out there, but providing a formal mechanism to say, okay, these are the values of our community. And when you talk about a vision for the future, I think that's really what it is. It's not necessarily a vision for, like I keep saying, put this here. It's a vision for, who are we, what is important to us, and where do we want to be in the next 10 years, and how will we define ourselves by what's important.
Maybe the ultimate plan could have a first chapter stating our communities get along better.
It absolutely will. Absolutely. That is the intent.
Hi, I'm Rena Beater, and I'm actually on the school board in Mamaroneck. And I just want to say that there are so many parallels to what's going on in the town and villages with planning. Phrases such as trying to fix the whole problem, I would rephrase that as trying to address multiple issues. Balance, trade-offs. Those are all things that the school district is grappling with. And as you heard, our population is growing, and having sat at a, Westchester Putnam School Board meeting yesterday, there are communities that are losing populations. Bedford is talking about closing down a school. You have Carmel, Briarcliff Manor, and you were speaking about moving here from Brooklyn, and I have heard that we are at the top of the list for people leaving Brooklyn and coming to our community. And I think for any of you who've paid attention to what's been going on in the school district, Dr. Shaps has presented that we've grown by over 600 students in 10, 12 years. So these are all issues that we're grappling with. We're actually talking about hiring a demographer to take a look at what's going on in our community, and then moving that forward. But I know that the school meets with the town village school, so we appreciate those meetings and a chance to share ideas. One of the things that I will say is it's a heavy lift. Getting input from all segments of the community is really, really important. We've struggled, as I know everybody has, with the louder voices on social media and being sure that people get accurate information and trying to drive people to the sources where they could get accurate information. I don't know if there are any plans to address that. It's a challenge, and it's one that we face too. So just curious as to, as you go through this planning process, what are the strategies that you're going to use to try to ensure that people get accurate information to enable them to engage in productive dialogue?
Melissa, you want to?
Sure, yeah. I guess, it's hard, as you know, it's really hard. But I think, again, and I keep saying this, and I'll keep saying it over and over again, I think, again, the benefit of a comprehensive plan that's not tied to a specific project you know, it's real and that it's open and it's transparent and everyone knows that there's an opportunity to have your voice heard. I think, you know, when there's a specific action that people feel are about to be taken, that's when, you know, things get very tense very quickly. And so I think, again, the benefit to define ourselves in a way that is very inclusive, that is very robust, that there's a lot of different places where you can provide your input, and that we start to socialize that, you know, well, oh, I hear there's this plan. Well, I heard they wanted to do this thing. And then, you know, well, yeah, over here. And, you know, for us to really get that messaging very clear, like you said, that there's a very specific source, that there's a website, and I know, you know, that traffic, you know, kind of is all over the place with social media, but, you know, we keep pointing back to those sources, like you said, like, no, this is the facts, this is what's going on, and also that we're engaged on social media, that, you know, as difficult as that is, when there's stuff out there that's wrong, that the chief elected officials or whoever is appointed, you know, or delegated for that role is constantly monitoring and on that, saying, no, actually, that's not true, go here. No, here's the fact, and I think we have to just acknowledge that that is the world we live in and that we have to engage in that way. But I do think, like I said, starting from a place of love, where we all love where we live, and we want to see things happen in a way that is meaningful to all of us, that gets us all, you know, excited, really, and making this a very positive process. And I think that's where planning is really, can be very fun and engaging, and also not as inflammatory as, you know, individual decisions that have to be made, because decisions need to be made every day.
You know, just to go back to how to reach out to people, the village just hired a person part-time to really have our message go out on social media on a consistent basis, with the idea of how to get in touch with more people and how to bring more people into the process. And as you pointed out, Rita, how to point people in the direction of, you know, accurate information, and how to quell rumors before the rumors become de facto facts. Because I've seen that happen a lot on social media, and it's very frustrating to see, you know, the game of telephone on social media until the story becomes unrecognizable to what you know actually happened. So you know, it's a weird thing to say that we hired somebody to do social media, but you really can't, you know, communicate effectively to the population around you without it. Because I talked about before, the death of the old media and the reliance that we have to have on social media and on LMC-TV, and thank God for LMC-TV that we still have it.
I just want to also say that we have recently ramped up our communication efforts and our social media presence. We now have a monthly digital newsletter that's going out. We have every Wednesday and Friday on the Village's Facebook page, post Wednesday Wisdom and Friday Fun Facts. And of course, there's also lots of information that we post regularly to update the community. And those are really the best ways for us to get out that what is the actual fact, what is the clear information, what's happening in the community. But of course, as Tom said, things will often end up going through the telephone, the modern version of telephone, like sites like Nextdoor, et cetera, where things just kind of snowball. So one important thing is for us to recognize that for each topic, there are particular constituencies that we need to make a specific outreach effort to. So for example, in our comprehensive parking study, we planned special meetings in the evenings for the business owners of the two business districts, and we had a give and take, a Q&A, and we gathered what their concerns were. We also did surveys that went directly to permit holders that live in apartments in the downtown, so that when we were looking at a comprehensive change to parking, we were able to take those things into consideration, but also we were able to deliver to them what we hope is a consistent and true message. And so I think Melissa is talking about that as well in terms of identifying, would you call it, a box within a box? Nancy? A meeting in a box. So, you know, break it down, and so, you know, actually go out to that specific group to make sure that your message gets across the right way.
It's also really critical, and just to, you know, tell off what Lorraine just said, that there are advocates around all these different issues, because we can't expect the town necessarily to, constantly be monitoring and frankly controlling the conversation. It's really important that different groups like this and all, the other groups in town that are passionate about different issues are actually feel heard and listened to and take ownership of the correct narrative so that they can spread the word, and the facts, and not kind of be part of the machine that twists the facts. So I think that's, again, this piece on the engagement. The more people are part of that and can, this meeting in a box idea is that, we want to get input on X issue, and that, it's not necessarily just the town or even the consultants going out, and we'll be doing a lot of that, but, that this group, you can do your own meeting. You'll have the resources you need to get the feedback from all of the people you represent, and then be able to share that back. So we're able to do much broader and more in-depth conversation. It's not just a town hall meeting where, right, the 5 people who always show up are very loud, and that's the input that we get. So I'm really committed to this engagement process.
Everybody hear me?
No.
Okay. Sorry. My name is Karen Weisberg. I've been a resident of the town of Mamaroneck for 35 years. And I'm pretty much a one-issue person. I moved here not from Brooklyn, from Upper Westchester, where the distances are large. In this area, they're very small. And when I moved to Larchmont, I was told it was 1 square mile. That's probably wrong, but so I ride a bicycle everywhere, and I want to know what you guys think about planning for making safer streets and mobility and getting people out of cars. What can we do? Just as an addendum to the question, looking through our 1966 report for the village of Larchmont in the year 1963, there were over 240 accidents with over 20 injuries just in the village in 1 year. So this is just traffic accidents. So I think if we look at the continuum of history, seat belts and those stop signs, as much as we hate them, have really helped, and it was a result of a lot of planning. So I'm going to let Lorraine start with the bicycles. Oh, I'm sorry.
Bikes, yeah. So that's okay. So, yeah, we're gonna work together on this one, I think. So, in the village of Larchmont, we started. I think there was a capstone project done by Columbia for bike lanes in the village. I saw that for the first time my first year as a trustee in 2011, and it just kind of sat for a while. Resurrected, and 2 years ago, the board approved the first bike lanes down Larchmont Avenue. This past year, we approved additional sharrows, because roadways couldn't handle bike lanes, to create a safe, marked path for kids who live in the manor to ride their bicycles to school. We also have a plan on the table, which we're discussing, to add bike lanes to Chatsworth Avenue. And I have talked with Nancy several times, and town and the village environmental committees, I believe, have had a conversation as well about how do we, and we've talked about it at TVS meetings as well, the town village school meetings, how do we encourage bicycle ridership, not just among people who ride to the train station, but also in our youth going to and from schools, and how do we safely connect all of the different neighborhoods and make a way to get to those schools. I know that ridership at the schools is up a lot. At our last TVS meeting, Dr. Shaps mentioned that they had to add additional bike racks at the high school and Hommocks, and that's wonderful. And we want to continue with that process. It's a big interest of the village board, of the village recreation committee, the environmental committee, and I think also in the downtown, part of the comprehensive parking study and some of the things we'll be implementing is looking at more modern bike storage, if I want to put it that way, in the downtown. So places like Somerville, Massachusetts, where they don't have like a little single bike rack somewhere on a sidewalk, but they actually take a parking space and they put, you know, a 20 bike rack, and so everybody knows I can ride my bike downtown. Here's where I can lock it up, and it shows that we respect and we support the use of bicycles as a viable method of transportation, especially in a 1 square mile village, where you really have very little reason to drive most of the time. You could walk or bike your way to the village, get your goods, put them in your little basket, and go on home. So that's from us.
I'm just going to add for the town that we did adopt a complete streets policy in the town of Mamaroneck about 10 years ago. And we have been slow, I have to admit, to really embracing all the uses on all the streets. But we've talked about it a lot, as Karen knows, through our sustainability collaborative with the other communities. We do have a plan right now to paint sharrows, which are the arrows that show that bikes are sharing the road with you. Arrow, sharing, sharrow. And we have a plan to paint sharrows on 5 different major roads in the town of Mamaroneck to encourage bicycle use. They were supposed to be done this fall, but our paving program was behind schedule because the contractor that we hired had overextended. So they were late, and we did not get to do it, but we will do it first thing in the spring when the weather improves. And we are trying to find places to put actual bike lanes. We also have put up a lot more bicycle racks, both at Hommocks, at the town center, and various places in the community. So we know, I want you to keep bugging us because we got to move faster and better on it. Thanks.
Thank you. Final question. Back in the day, when I was interested in what was then called urban renewal, its purpose was to remove blight. That's what it started. The result often was to remove the poor. Taking down neighborhoods, the west side of Boston, for example, was removed. And we're all familiar with, prevent blight, urban renewal. The result often was to remove the poor. And how does comprehensive planning, amongst the three, address the poorer members of our community?
Well, no, I think, and I think it's a drumbeat, and I'm going to keep saying it, and people will get tired of it, but I think there are voices that don't get heard in the process. I think this is a great example. This is a terrific meeting. We're all getting some really good information today, having a great conversation. There are people who can't be here today because they have to be at work, and even in the evening, they maybe are working 2 jobs, so they're not going to be able to come to that public hearing. So really, for this engagement piece, meeting people where they are, really doing a very good job of going to places where we know we're going to be able to have those same conversations that we can have on a Tuesday morning at the diner, with people who are not going to be here at Tuesday morning, and asking the same questions, and really starting to, create a process where people have an opportunity to be heard. So it's not necessarily even just us around the table saying, well, we think these are the issues that, folks who are, struggling and are disadvantaged in our community have. We're going to really ask people directly about the issues that they have. And those voices will be just as important and just as loud as the voices that get to come out and participate, in sort of the more traditional ways. So that's something that's really needs to be baked in, and we're being very intentional about when we do this community engagement piece, so that it is really a comprehensive plan. It really does represent everyone who lives here and has an interest in the future of our community.
Yeah, I think not just in terms of the comprehensive plan, but in terms of being community leaders. I mean, I think what you have to do is you have to go into the community and really try and make your presence felt. Myself and the new village manager, Jerry Barbarian, and members of the Mamaroneck Board of Trustees have tried to reach out to the Community Resource Center and be an active presence there, to be there often, because a lot of the new immigrants who are, socially not socially, economically disadvantaged, come from communities where the elected officials and the police were not just inaccessible, it was someone you wanted to avoid, someone who you didn't want to have interaction with. If you were having interaction with that person, it was not going to be a good day. And so I think what the struggle is to show that no, we're not here to try and make your life more difficult or to take something from you. We're here to try and see what you need and how we can help. And one of the ways we've been doing that in the village of Mamaroneck is we've talked to the community in Washingtonville, and we're soon going to be remarking the streets, relining the streets, so that it would slow traffic down. Because one of the main complaints we get in the streets of Washingtonville is the streets are very narrow. And if you're doing 25 in Washingtonville, which is the speed limit, it still looks like it's a lot, because they're very narrow, and and there are obviously some people who are doing 30, 35, and they're very crowded streets. And we all know, God forbid, kids can run between parked cars, and I've had unfortunate experiences of growing up in the city and seeing that happen in my life, and I don't want to see that happen in the village of Mamaroneck. So we've been working with them on how to calm traffic. And the new village manager, I got to give him a lot of credit, because he's made a conscious effort. He says, the people in other neighborhoods know how to get in touch with me. They know how to access me, and they do it, consistently and with great vigor. And vigor with my, but the people in Washingtonville, he said, I don't hear from them, so I have to go down there and find out what's going on. And he's made that effort, and I applaud him for that. And that's what I think we need. We need to reach out, and we need to show that we are a community, as I know the other two communities. But to be honest, part of this is most of the people who are economically challenged live in the village of Mamaroneck, and we have to really make a conscious effort to think about what they would need, and to then talk to them about what their concerns are. I remember meeting with Jerry, the new village manager, with the Head Start folks and the moms of Head Start, and they're going between their jobs, picking up their kids, bringing their kids somewhere, dropping a kid off, and then going back to another job. And I don't have that much energy, and we all know how much work a little kid is, to have to deal with that and have to deal with doing two jobs. My hat's off to them. But so it's up to us to make the effort.
Gosh, I wish we had more time. But we are absolutely like 10 minutes over. Right?
Before I go and before I even thank the panel, I have to call attention to something very special. And that is, we have one member who's been a consistent attendee who's going to turn 100 this month, and she's here today. Iris Freed, stand up. Toast to you. We should all have a life as rich, full, and giving as Iris. I want to thank you, Iris. I want to thank all of you for coming. I want to thank our panel. It was a very rich and robust and interactive meeting. I want to encourage you to come next month, because guess what? We're going to talk about LMC-TV and its need and importance in this community, and that will be on February 10th. So we hope to see you then. Thank you for coming. Bye-bye. Thank you.
I always enjoy sitting with you.